Hi everyone, Greg Murphy here. You'll no doubt have Guardian installed in more than one vehicle in your fleet, so wouldn't it be great if you could have a snapshot view of all your vehicles? We've developed the Guardian Power BI dashboard which can do just that. So I'm going to pass you over to Charles Dawson, who'll talk you through how it works.
Thanks Murph. This is a great tool to get a consolidated view of your fleet and any trends that are happening. Let's take a look.
Well, hi and welcome to a run through of the AutoSense Power BI dashboard for the Guardian by Seeing Machines system. This dashboard aims to give you a snapshot view of what your vehicles are doing and will allow you to actually target the vehicles that are causing a few issues and really get that trend data heading in the right direction. The dashboard is best viewed in what we call full screen mode, so pop up to view there and click on full screen. So now what we're looking at here is the events dashboard, essentially made up of three areas: fatigue events, distraction events and field of view events. Now we have a pie graph here which nicely separates out the different types of events. So in the case of fatigue events, you'll have both drowsiness and microsleep, and please note that in this dashboard only valid events are shown, so anything that's been called a normal driving event, so for example fatigue/yawning event, will not appear here. At the bottom obviously we have the vehicles, and this is a count system, so this is the number of events during the time period. The time period is dictated by the slider bar at the top here. So if we wanted to look at just 1 month, we might move through to say July 2020. We'll just move through the figures here. Start on the 1st of July, and then we might want to end at the end of August. So we move through there, 31st of August. Now we haven't had many events. This is actually the AutoSense data, so I'll just expand that back out to that full time period. So essentially, as I say, the number of events during that period, we've had 2 drowsiness events there, one in this vehicle, the other in this one. If there were multiple events, obviously these would be put in an order, and you can click on any of these titles here to order in a similar way to Microsoft Excel. Cross in the distraction events here. This little button down the bottom here allows us to toggle between all distraction events or targeting in on named distraction events. So a named distraction event in this situation is probably either a cell phone event where there has been a distraction event and the analyst has been able to see a mobile device in the picture, or perhaps a notifiable distracted driving event. And a notifiable distracted driving event is one where both hands, say, are off the wheel and the driver's doing something other than driving at that point. So to see just those events, we click on the little pie graph here and it will bring that up. So we can see here that we've just had one notifiable distracted driving event in this period. Field of view events, obviously what a field of view event is when the camera is unable to track a driver. So either it has been covered, so that's when someone's hung something over the camera, misaligned, so that's where the camera has actually been physically moved and no longer focuses on the driver, and we have a third class here, operator out of position, so that's where we can see the driver but they're just not in the position that we require them to be in to track them. The main thing there is that whenever any of these field of view events are occurring, essentially the system is disabled and will not pick up any event that might happen during the driving period. So you can see down here we've had several of these events. So we have had a camera misaligned, a sensors covered, and a couple of operator out of positions there. So if we click on any part of the pie graph, it will actually just highlight that particular event or that particular event type. The next graph we'll have a look at here is our trend data. So you're probably receiving this from us already on a quarterly basis, This is just looking to present the data that's collected against your fleet in such a way that you can actually benchmark that and measure that against other fleets that you might like to, or also a national fleet number. So the top line here, as you can see, is connected vehicles. So this is the number of vehicles that we have listed in the system that of yours that actually have a Guardian device in it. Operating vehicles are the number of vehicles during that month which actually operated, so we're on the road and connected to our server. Fatigue events, so this is a count of the number of individual events. Once again, these are all valid events. The next column is average fatigue events per 10,000 Ks. So essentially what we're doing there is taking the number of events that were recorded during that particular month, dividing it by the number of Ks that those vehicles drove, so the distance they drove, and then dividing it further by 10,000. And as I say, that does give us a number that we can benchmark against other fleets. We do the same thing for distraction events per 10,000 Ks, and then finally our average field of view percentage. So the field of view percentage is essentially the number of, the amount of time that the vehicle has been driving, the total operating time, divided out by the amount of time that the system has been unable to lock on to a driver. And essentially, of course, when the system is not able to lock onto the driver, it will be unable to detect any events, fatigue, distraction, or otherwise. So you can see here that we move through our graphs over a time period, month to month. And basically, if you look at our data for August, we had 11 vehicles connected, no fatigue events, and a rate of 5.32 distraction events per 10,000 Ks driven. Not a bad average there. The national average at this stage for fatigue events per 10,000 Ks is 0.32 of an event per 10,000 Ks, and for the distraction events it's 9 events per 10,000 Ks. In terms of field of view percentage, you can see here we've got a 0, so that means basically that all of the time that our vehicles were on the road and operating, they were able to track the driver. The third table that we have here, or graph that we have here, is, as you can see, a map of New Zealand. So that's where the vehicles are driving. So essentially each of these dots represents an event that has occurred during the time period as shown by the graph up the top here. So we have our different types: distracted driving, drowsiness, notifiable driving, and notifiable eye closure. And if there have been any microsleeps, they would also show up there. So you can select or unselect the various different types. So if we pick on our drowsiness event, if you remember back, we had 2 of those. So you can see we have one here in the Lower North Island and one probably on the road between Christchurch and Dunedin there. So this can be useful for analysing your team's driving events and so forth, potentially looking at where fatigue events, cell phone events, those sorts of things are happening, and you can sort of target in on that area. The final board is what we call our diagnostic board. So this is really looking at the health of the unit. Really important that you have a look at this. And just a quick note, basically the events board, which is the first one we looked at, and this diagnosis board are updated every 7 days, generally on a Monday. So that data will obviously on Monday be brand new, and as the 7 days go through, get a bit older, but then will be updated again on that Monday. The trend analytics board that we were talking about just before, that is updated on a monthly basis. So we're looking at a monthly trend there. So within our diagnostic board at the moment, we have 2 areas: forward-facing camera status. So this is how well are our forward-facing cameras working. Essentially, we have 3 different categories: check, OK, and warning. So OK means everything's going really well. Warning means we need to just have a bit of a look at it. It might be just watch it over a couple of week period. And check generally indicates that we need to have a look at that particular unit. It's not working 100% well at that space. So we have a look at this particular one here, and this is showing that our forward-facing camera in FWK 131 is having some issues. So we'd raise a support ticket with our support@autosense.co.nz email address, and our support team would have a look into that system and potentially organise to have that one fixed. The second part of the diagnostic board is our tracking status. So essentially our tracking status is looking at how well is that driver facing camera able to lock onto and track the face. We'll talk about a level of confidence there, and essentially what we need to do there is it does show which systems we need to have a look at. So once again, that area of check is something to look for, and a warning would be something that we just start to actually keep a watching eye on. So we can click on this part of the graph here and see which ones that we need to have a look at, and run through and have a look at those events. Now, quite a high number here, but a number of the systems within the AutoSense grouping are test and check events, so ones that we're actually having a bit of a look at. So guys, that's everything with regards to the Power BI software at this stage, or the dashboard. One of the great things with Power BI is that we can change this around quite easily. So if you do have an area that you would like to, of data that you'd like to have a really good look at, please do let us know, and we can have a bit of a look at changing things around and bringing a dashboard in for that type of information as well.
So that's the Power BI dashboard, giving you a snapshot view of all the vehicles in your fleet with Guardian on board. It's well worth investing in technology like this to give you insights on how to manage your fleet.